Madam President, it's been nearly 1 year since Corinthian Colleges Incorporated began its death spiral, falling under the weight of its own wrongdoing. Corinthian Colleges defrauded students, defrauded taxpayers, lied to accreditors, lied to the federal government, and on Sunday, this for-profit college, Corinthian College, announced it would close its remaining 28 campuses in California, Oregon, Hawaii, Arizona, and New York. So finally, Corinthian has collapsed. We reflect on this disaster and ask a basic critical question. Madam President, I ask the Senate please be in order.
The Senate will be in order.
We ask a basic critical question. Why did it take this long, given the long litany of violations, to finally stop the flow of hundreds of millions of dollars, federal tax dollars, to Corinthian colleges? And, equally important, how many Corinthian disasters lie ahead in the for-profit college and university industry? There are certainly more questions we need to ask of the Department of Education, how it handled this case, how it must be more aggressive in the future to stop violations earlier, especially to prevent the students at these for-profit education companies from suffering an experience similar to Corinthian. There'll be more to come on that in the weeks and months ahead. But today I want to focus on what's next for the students who attended these Corinthian campuses. We know this for-profit college and university industry pretty well. Ask any high school student in America to go online and to search with a word like college or university and watch what happens. As soon as you get to any kind of directory of websites, you'll start seeing the ads for the for-profit colleges and universities. Some of the names are pretty obvious and well known. The largest of all, the University of Phoenix. The next largest, DeVry University out of the city of Chicago. And next largest, Kaplan, an entity that once owned the Washington Post, now is on its own. And these for-profit colleges and universities descend on students as well as those graduated from high school, imploring them to sign up for an education online. Sign up for a for-profit college. It's going to be so easy. You can do this online. You can get your degree. It'll be a snap. That's what Corinthian did for years. I know with the news of the closure here that students who signed up for Corinthian and went to school there woke up wondering what's next. Their college just disappeared, but their student debt didn't disappear. They signed up for these loans to go to this worthless school, and now the school has disappeared and the debt is still there. There's a federal law that can help these students. The Higher Education Act gives students who attended a school within 90 days of its closure the ability to discharge their federal student loans. I'm renewing my call to the Department of Education to reach out directly to the thousands of students who've been exploited by this Corinthian college, to provide discharge applications to these students and give them clear, upfront information about how transferring their credits to another school may impact their ability to discharge their loans. You see, if you transfer these Corinthian credits, which are of limited value, to some other school, you can't discharge your loan that you took out at Corinthian. So a student has to make a choice. The notices that the Department of Education sent to students yesterday is unacceptable. It leaves students to navigate through a series of links to get more information, and it glosses over the most basic right of a student to discharge the student loans from this bankrupt Corinthian college. Federal regulations state clearly the Secretary of Education's responsibility when a school like Corinthian closes. According to the law, it says, after confirming the date of a school's closure, the Secretary identifies any direct loan borrower or student on whose behalf a parent borrowed who appears to have been enrolled at the school on the closure date to have withdrawn not more than 120 days prior to the closure date. It goes on to say, if the borrower's current address is known, the secretary mails the borrower a discharge application and an explanation of the qualifications and procedures for obtaining a discharge. The law is pretty clear. It's up to the Secretary of Education. The same agency that published an accreditation for this failed school, the same agency which sent in the loan forms for students to sign up for loans, that same agency now has an obligation under the law to tell these students there's a way out. Do you know what the average tuition is for a two-year degree at this failed Corinthian College? About $40,000. Imagine if it's your son or daughter. They've just gone through 2 years and they have $40,000 of debt. This Corinthian College has just gone bankrupt, and now they're finding that people laugh at them when they show the diploma from Corinthian. What's wrong with this picture? For a young person, 2 years out of high school, 3 years out of high school, $40,000 of debt and nothing to show for it. Now is not the time for the department to be concerned with the cost to taxpayers of discharging this debt. That's an important issue, and we'll take it on later. The time for that was really the last 12 months when the Department of Education kept Corinthian alive by pumping in hundreds of millions of dollars to keep their doors open when they were headed for bankruptcy. Now's the time to focus on the students, particularly the students in the states that I mentioned earlier. They need the relief from this student debt. The department's also been doing something which I really want to call them out on. You know what they're suggesting to these students who have just gone through this miserable experience at this for-profit, failed, bankrupt Corinthian College? They're suggesting they transfer to another for-profit college. What are they thinking? Students should be warned if they use their Corinthian credits to transfer to another institution, they're not going to be eligible for discharge. And when the department suggested the schools they might transfer to, here are a few examples of the schools the U.S. Department of Education suggested that the Corinthian College students transfer their credits to and still keep their debt from Corinthian. ITT Tech, see their ads everywhere, don't you? What you don't see in their ads is the fact that they're under investigation by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. 16 different state attorneys general are investigating ITT Tech, and they're on the Department of Education's heightened cash monitoring list. And our department is recommending that these students transfer to this school? What are they thinking? Here's another one, Cordon Bleu, International Academy of Design and Technology. Powerful names. What you don't see in all their ads, their parent company, Career Education Corporation, is under investigation by 17 different state attorneys general and on the Department of Education's heightened cash monitoring list. And our Department of Education is suggesting that the students at the failed Corinthian College, oh, why don't you pick up a culinary degree at Cordon Bleu? Maybe it will stay in business. Here's another one. The Art Institutes and Argosy University. Argosy University. I ran into their signs in Chicago this last weekend, and I couldn't help but think, how many students are lured into believing Argosy University is something more than it really is? It's a for-profit college and university. And incidentally, for the record, the parent company, Education Management Corporation, is under investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice and 17 state attorneys general, and they are also on the Department of Education's heightened cash monitoring list. It's another school the Department of Education suggested the Corinthian scholars transfer to. Westwood College, one of the most infamous in the Chicagoland area, being sued by the Illinois Attorney General for deceptive recruiting practices, recommended by the Department of Education for transfer. DeVry, under investigation by the Federal Trade Commission and 2 state attorneys general. University of Phoenix, whose parent company is being investigated by 2 state attorneys general. Kaplan, under investigation by 3 state attorneys general. Has the Department of Education learned nothing? How, in good faith, can they tell these Corinthian students who just had their college disappear and are sitting on a pile of debt that these are viable transfer options for their students? Last summer, the department assured me they'd not sell Corinthian campuses to companies being investigated. They didn't want the students to be placed in double jeopardy. Why now will the department accept that outcome for these students? A move like this leads me to the sad conclusion the Department of Education is out of touch with the reality of the danger of students signing up at for-profit colleges and universities. I want to say a word about the students who don't qualify for the clear relief I mentioned under the federal law. I've joined Senator Elizabeth Warren and others in calling on the Department of Education to provide meaningful federal debt relief to all students who've been wronged by Corinthian. We believe the fraud perpetrated by Corinthian should constitute a defense to repayment for students. The department should provide clear guidelines on how students can assert their claim. These students need it, and they deserve it. Senator Warren and I will be meeting with Secretary Duncan and Undersecretary Mitchell later this week. While Corinthian's fraudulent behavior has left tens of thousands of students in financial desperate straits, the company's leaders have been cashing in for years. The CEO of the failed Corinthian Corporation, which received 80 to 90% of its revenue directly from the federal treasury through student loans, made over $3 million in 2013. Vice presidents didn't do quite as well. They only were paid $1 million. And the list goes on. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, in September of last year, sued Corinthian. This goes back a few months. They sued them for illegal predatory lending schemes, luring students with false job promises, saddling them with high-cost debt, and harassing them when they were unable to repay their loans. Turned out only 25% of the students coming out of Corinthian colleges were able to repay their loans. 25%. Why? Because the tuition is so high, the diploma is so worthless. Why are we complicit? Why is the U.S. Department of Education not blowing the whistle on this school and every other school that's exploiting students all across America? At the end of the day, the losers are not only the students who've wasted their time and ended up with debt. The losers are the taxpayers of America. The taxpayers of America who provide the funds for the student loans and unfortunately do not have the protection that they deserve in this situation. Madam President, I'm going to yield the floor at this point and call on the Department of Education to put as their highest priority the casualties and victims of this Corinthian college. And I yield the floor.